Welcome back to another episode of Benefits Insider. I'm your host, Chris Hamilton, and today I want to share with you what a health insurance death spiral is, how to identify if your company is in one, and most importantly, what to do if you are. If you want to use your benefits to attract or retain talent, you have to offer something they can't get anywhere else. The reason I want to bring this topic up today is because many of us, you may be going through or getting ready to go through the renewal process for your company's health insurance. And this is something that I see relatively frequently, or more frequently than I would like to see. And the reason I want to speak to this today is because the easiest way to solve this problem is early identification and corrective action, because the earlier that you intervene into this situation, the less costly it is to solve the problem and the higher success rate you will have in solving the issue. So quickly, what is a health insurance death spiral? It simply means as your company's costs continue to rise, you increase costs to your employees. The healthy employees that don't really use the health insurance drop out of the insurance, leaving those that use the insurance. And at the renewal, insurance companies will increase your premiums even more. So think about this. The health insurance works best when we have a handful of people that really use the insurance are being subsidized by a bunch of us that aren't. And when healthy people that pay money in but don't use the insurance get out, it changes the medical loss ratio. And that's simply a function of how much premium is being paid in to the insurance company versus how much money is being paid out by the insurance company. And as that ratio gets higher, insurance companies have to raise your rates, because health insurance companies are for profit and they need to charge you more than they pay out. And I cover that in great detail in other episodes, but for the sake of this particular conversation, that's the concept to get. And so if your health insurance premiums continue to rise and you're raising costs to your employees, that's usually a pretty good indicator that that your company is at risk of a health insurance death spiral. So how do you tell if you're actually in one? And really, why is this such a big problem? Periodically, I'll meet with employers that have such a low participation rate. Their benefit costs are extraordinarily high. And it's because their participation is low. It's adverse selection. So insurance companies have to charge more. And those business owners and executives are asking us how to get their health insurance costs down. And there's a number of ways to do it, but the best way would have been to not get in that situation in the first place. But if you're there or you're heading in that direction, this episode is going to share with you how to identify that and how to fix it. So the easiest way to determine if you're in a health insurance death spiral is your participation rate. Participation rate. Let me say that again. The easiest way to determine whether your company's in a health insurance death spiral is your participation rate. And that's simply a function of how many employees are enrolled in your insurance divided by how many employees did you offer the health insurance to. So if you have 50 employees enrolled and you have 100 employees that are eligible, your participation rate is 50%. It's pretty easy math. So you can do that and determine. Typically, insurance companies are going to want to see 75%. Every carrier has a different ratio that they want to see, or where they'll start rating up for lower participation. But the other way, and I think this is another indicator to determine whether or not you're entering a health insurance death spiral, is your per employee per year cost of insurance, otherwise known as a PEPY. And this is simply a function of, and if you've got your monthly statement, you can do the math. What's the total premium that you have divided by the total number of employees enrolled? That'll tell you what your per employee per month is. Multiply it times 12, and that will give you your per employee per year costs. And so if those per employee per year costs are also going up at the same time your participation rate is going down, that's the deadly duo right there. I mean, you're in a death spiral at that point, particularly if that has been going on for multiple years. And the reason why I like to look at per employee per year costs tells us a couple things. One, how do you rate relative to the rest of your industry or the rest of the country? So if your costs, for instance, are above $10,000, if you're fully insured and your costs are above $10,000 per employee per year, that's high. And also if your participation rate's below, call 60 to 75%, that's low. The other reason I want to look at those two metrics is because if you're a CFO and you get a 20% increase, you pass on a big chunk of that to the employees, you may not see a 20% change in your P&L. So, and that's simply because if you're just looking, a lot of us are looking at our financials year over year. So I spent $1 million in health insurance this year. What did I spend last year? I might have only spent 900,000. So you might look at that math and think, well, that's not 20%. And that's because you have fewer people participating in the insurance. So naturally you're paying out less. So as finance individuals or finance professionals, we may not notice the delta in the rates. We just notice what's going through our P&L. So it's important to look at more than just what's flowing through the P&L. Whether you're a business owner, you need to look at these other two indicators: participation rate and per employee costs for insurance. So that tells you, or gives you an indication of how to determine if you're in a health insurance death spiral or if you're heading into one. What do you do if you're in one and you want to come out of it? And I'm going to give you 3 options to address this problem. And there's actually several more that you can use, but these are the 3 most common ones that we see being used to actually address the problem. These are really going to come down to your company, your risk profile, your budget, and how you perceive offering benefits to your company. So I'm going to give you 3 different ways to deal with this problem. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is, if you're unsure about how your employees perceive benefits, and I often find that many companies haven't done this, so it's important to do it, is survey your employees. Whether it's an informal asking your managers to ask employees if they'll buy insurance at a certain price, or if it's actually sending out a formal survey, whether it's on paper. The best way to do it is electronically. Your broker probably has a way to do this. You just ask them. They should be able to send out a survey. You really want to understand a couple of things. One, do your employees even want health insurance? Surprisingly, depending on your industry, there's a lot of employees that don't want it no matter what it costs. That's a different problem that I'm going to show you how to address. But if they do want it, what type of benefits are they looking for? And at what price point do they become buyers? So that's the first thing. That's kind of a extra. That would be 3.1. The first thing that you want to do, if you're fully insured and you don't have any sort of appetite to look at alternative insurance arrangements like self-funding or level funding, and probably if you're in a death spiral, you probably don't for budgetary reasons. But the very first thing that you're going to want to do is look at establishing what's called a health reimbursement arrangement, or an HRA. If you're currently offering a plan, I'm just going to make an assumption here. This is called a $2,500 deductible or a $3,000 deductible plan. If you're fully insured, the first thing you're going to do is to dilute your benefits to get a cheaper premium. I'm going to show you how to rebuild the plan, but you're going to want to drop to the bottom of the plan grid. So when you get your renewal, you're going to see the plans listed by most expensive plan to the least expensive plan. And you're going to want to pick the highest deductible plan. I would recommend using a copay plan in this situation, if you're in this situation, for a lot of reasons. But pick the lowest cost, highest deductible plan. And then you're going to establish what's called a health reimbursement arrangement. And so this is a special banking account that you're going to set up. Just for the simplest term, it's a bank account that is going to reimburse employees if they go over a certain deductible threshold. So let's just say you offered a $3,000 deductible plan in the past. You're going to go to a $6,500 deductible plan, and you can tell employees you're going to get a copay with a $6,500 deductible if you want that plan. But if you want a better plan, we'll charge you more because there's more risk to it. And if you exceed your old plan deductible of $3,000, we're just going to reimburse you the difference. So let's just say you have 50 employees that take that option. You have the potential of reimbursing $3,500 for anybody that exceeds their $3,000 deductible. It's a way to get a lower cost insurance plan, but keep the same net value of the benefit to your employees, knowing that very few of those employees are going to exceed that reimbursable deductible level. So it's going to save you money. If I'm just kind of giving you rough math, Going from a $3,000 deductible to a $6,500 deductible should lower the premium, depending on the carrier. Some carriers don't give as much of a discount, but I would assume 12 to 18% probably. And then by the time you factor in your reimbursements, your net savings could be anywhere between, call it 8 and 14, 8 to 12, 8 to 14%, something like that, depending on your group's performance. So that's an easy way to bring some savings. And the goal is for that $6,500 deductible plan, we're going to make it cheaper. So there is a budgetary component of this. You're going to have to be willing to spend a little bit more. But the idea is we're going to try to bring some of those people back onto the health insurance that have dropped it for cost reasons in the past in hopes of stabilizing your plan. But maybe you're an employer that has already dropped to the bottom of the plan grid. You might say, Chris, I'm already offering a $5,000, $6,000, or $7,000 deductible plan. I've already hit my budgetary limit. I'm not contributing more. Now what? Well, this is a really good application of what's called an ICHRA. It's an individual coverage health reimbursement arrangement. It's a little bit different than the HRA I just explained to you. And in this scenario, your company is actually getting out of the health insurance renewal game on a corporate level. And what you're doing is you're giving an allowance to each of your employees to go buy their own individual health care in the government exchange. They're buying individual policies. And there's a lot of really good benefits to offering an ICHRA, or an individual coverage healthcare reimbursement arrangement. The first thing is ICHRAs cap your company's cost of health insurance. You set an allowance. Let's just say you want to give your employees $300 or $400 or $500 per month, and that's it. Renewals come around next year. Costs may have gone up in the individual marketplace, but you're going to continue offering your set allowance. You can adjust it if you want to, but you have more predictability over what your health insurance budget's going to be. And your employees have to figure out, do I want to change plans or do I want to pay more? So it's taking you out of that whole renewal dance every single year, having to deal with cost increases and whatnot. You're shifting it to your employees. I think that's the biggest benefit. Participation requirements don't matter. Rates in the individual marketplace, they're set, they're state driven or state filed. So insurance companies, it's very transparent what they cost. It's based on your age and your geography on the simplest terms. So employees, it's pretty easy to go determine, what is it going to cost for me to get $1,000 deductible plan? Oh, my employee allowance doesn't cover that. Okay, am I willing to pay more, or do I want to buy down my coverage and get and pay less out of my pocket? You've shifted those decisions from your company's team to individuals. And a lot of employers like it for that particular reason. But I'm not a huge fan of ICHRAs, and I'm going to give you a couple of reasons why not. Although I think it's a great alternative and it's a great solution to the healthcare death spiral. The big issues with ICHRAs is they don't really solve the root cause of rising health insurance costs, which is the cost of healthcare and claims. All too often, the options that are available in the marketplace, it's confusing, or it can be confusing for a lot of employees. If you think about if you're like a lot of companies, you offer 2 or 3 health plans today, and that can be difficult for employees to determine which plan they should sign up for. Imagine having access to 36 different health insurance plans to pick from. That can be a little overwhelming for folks. The other thing, particularly in my home state of Texas, many of the major metro areas here, there are not PPO network options available. So you're dealing with these very narrow HMO plan types. And for a lot of companies that are particularly picky about the type of coverage they have, they're not huge fans of HMOs. I can understand why. It can often take a long time to get into a doctor. You have to get a referral from that doctor that you've selected, a primary care physician, and it may not be to somebody that you want to see. And oftentimes, particularly in the executive levels, doctors that you want to see may or may not be in that particular HMO. So that's another thing to consider. The third thing that I would mention to you as a potential option, and this isn't going to work for every company, but it will work for some of you. You may watch this and this may fit your company's profile. For many, particularly blue collar type industries where you've got a lot of field workers and then you have a management cohort, there's many times I'm thinking about restaurants, I'm thinking about landscape, some construction type companies, where the field staff, when we survey the employees, they're not going to be buyers of the insurance at any price. They don't value it. It's not something they want. So there's always going to be this struggle of getting people to buy into the insurance unless you just give it away for free. And so in those scenarios, I've seen this done before. We've done this a couple times. Those companies will actually have a separate entity, a management company, and by bona fide job title and job class, those employees in management type levels or at the executive levels that really value and want benefits, they will become employed by that separate entity. I mean, it's just legitimate W-4 payroll. Everything is above board, but they become employees of this other entity. And therefore, since those employees value and are buyers of the insurance, it typically the participation issue is self-resolving. And then for the other entity with the other employees, there's typically different types of insurance that you can structure for them that isn't subject to participation requirements. But I will just caveat that you want to seek out expert compliance advice before you do something like that. You're going to want an ERISA attorney to look at it and to bless it to make sure that everything is done properly. So I'm going to give you one bonus option to solve this issue, and that is a PEO, otherwise known as a professional employer organization. There's a lot of mixed reviews on whether they're good or whether they're not. In certain circumstances, they can be really good for employers. If you're a small employer and you operate in multiple states and you don't have professional finance and human resource staff, that's like the bread and butter of the PEO industry. There's other circumstances where a PEO may apply. This is one, and it's really going to be PEO dependent. But there are PEOs out there that will underwrite. They have what's called master plans. So they have insurance programs that are written on their entire employee base or insured basis. So you may have an employee with 35 employees, but they're combining together with 500 other employers, pooling those employees together and buying insurance at scale. And so depending on the risk profile of your group, a PEO may give you a really good option that comes with a whole different set of costs. So you're going to pay administrative fees and a host of other fees that you don't pay today probably, but you got to look at it on a net basis. What is it going to cost you to get in versus what do you get from it? And for some employers, that will make sense. So just to kind of summarize the whole thing up, early intervention is the key. I think it's really, really important if you have questions about whether or not you're in a death spiral today and what your options are to solve that problem, to seek out expert second opinions. Because ask 3 brokers or advisors for advice on how to solve your issue. You're probably likely to get 3 different answers if you're asking the right people. I've heard answers from there's nothing that can be done to solve the problem, just pay more money, to I ain't got no magic fairy dust, which I hate that answer, or it is what it is. If you're getting answers like that, that is a clear sign that you need to seek out another opinion, because, and you've probably heard me say this before, I'm going to say it again here, there is always an option to solve whatever issue you're facing in health insurance. Whatever issue your company has with its health insurance, there's always a solution. Usually there's more than one. Now, you may not like 1 or 2 of those options, but somebody should always be able to give you an option to solve whatever the problem is that you're facing. So if you're not getting that, whether it's me, depending on where you're located, I can refer you to somebody that I know does good work. No matter where you are in the country, I know people that can probably take really good care of you. So if you're interested in getting a second opinion, send me a note, whether I help you or somebody else does. The future, the financial future of your company, the financial future of your employees depends on it. I hope this was helpful. Until next time, use these tips to add more profitability to your bottom line and more money in your employees' paychecks.